Hey guys, MizzeeOH here with another installment of the Man in Black Reviews Film Club. Re-Animator and I are today covering the 2000 Guy Ritchie movie, Snatch, and joining us as this time's guest host is Stars In contributor Timpedia.
Woo! Like to make a big entrance for the first time. Woo!
Yeah.
Woohoo! Graham, since you're the one who suggested this, I'll let you take the discussion first.
Okay. When did you guys first see / hear about this movie? How about you, Tim?
I can't remember exactly when, but it was a couple of years ago. I think my dad just got it out of absolutely nowhere and just said, hey, let's watch this movie. And I was like, I don't know, it sounds kind of weird. And I just watched it anyway. And it was actually surprisingly good. I never expected it, and it was kind of crazy, but it was still good.
Yeah. Opal?
You told me about it a couple of weeks ago, Graham, and I watched it about 15 minutes ago. So, yeah.
Okay. The first time I've heard about it, I was watching this anime called Bakano. I don't know if you guys heard about it, but it's really good. It's kind of like this 1930s gangster kind of show with a twist. It's also it's very Tarantino-esque because it has like a whole big cast of characters. It's always switching back and forth between plot lines and all that jazz. And I heard someone say that the opening credit sequence was inspired by this movie. Because if you look at the opening credits to that and the opening credits to Snatch, you'll see that it was very heavily inspired for it. So just out of curiosity, I checked it out one day. I watched it, and now it's like one of my all-time favorite movies.
Huh. Nice.
And I'm not kidding when I say that. Like, okay, I've seen hundreds of movies, more than I can count. I think there are only like 4 movies that I love more than this.
So you do really mean it.
Yes, I could watch it. I could watch it over again, never get tired of it. I love everything about it. I love the cinematography. I love the editing. I love the acting. I love the characters. I love it. 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 All right.
I don't know. Do you love it?
No. But here's the thing. Like, this is just from my experience. I don't know. This might differ from some of you, but from my experience, every man I know, like every manly man, has their favorite gangster movie. Now, some guys like The Godfather, some guys like Pulp Fiction, some guys like Goodfellas, some guys like Scarface. For me, that movie is Snatch.
Would you really this wouldn't really be a gangster movie in the category that something like, I mean, Goodfellas or Godfather would be, though. This is a bit different from that.
Yeah. Well,
it's only really a gangster movie in the sense that there are gangsters in the movie who play a prominent role. It's not even really about them that much.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I don't know. It's almost like there's so many. It's like there's so many other important characters that aren't really gangsters that are just sort of gangster-ish, but they aren't really gangsters.
Well, they're mostly criminals.
Well, yeah. Oh, criminals then, yes. I was thinking
like
people who are like
criminal movie.
Yeah,
I was thinking you meant people like who are lifetime gangsters, like they're in a gang and that kind of thing. Oh yeah, criminals. Yes, the movie is full of criminals.
Yeah,
pretty much everyone is a criminal of some sort.
Yeah, I mean there are gangsters in there, but there are also thieves. There are illegal boxing promoters. There are more thieves. There are people who are in the mob. There are arms dealers.
There's every kind of criminal in this movie.
Yes. So,
yeah, I noticed with this one, I wasn't quite dreading it going into it, but I was sort of prepared to be kind of lost by the entire thing, because I swear, every Guy Ritchie movie I've ever watched before now, I've been completely lost at by, 50 minutes in. I have no idea what's ever going on.
Yeah.
But that was sort of the case in the very beginning, but only for the first, I'd say, 15 minutes. It was a little bit hard to follow, but unlike the other movies he's done, after a while it really got a lot easier. So I think that's one sort of issue that Guy Ritchie's other movies have, but this one didn't seem to have on as big of a scale.
I admit that this movie does take a while to get on its feet, but once it has everything straightened out, it hits the ground running on all cylinders.
Mm-hmm.
I think the main problem here is that they just sort of. I mean, I haven't really seen many other Guy Ritchie movies, but as far as this one goes, like in the beginning, you see all the characters, and they are all just sort of thrown at you out of context while the opening sequence is going on. So it's sort of hard to grasp onto who's important and what is really going on.
Yeah, you see
and, like,
a crap
who's
load
doing
of like
what.
30. Yeah, you see a crap load of like 30-second clips of every character that's going to be important in the movie, and you're like, am I supposed to remember all this right now?
Oh, hey, there's a random old guy with white hair, and then there's a random gypsy, and a random guy who's Russian and likes blades.
A random black guy.
And who are all these people, and why are they important to the story? But then they just sort of step back and just forget about most of them until they reappear in the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that's the thing. There are two main stories they do kind of flip-flop back and forth between them, and there are very few moments where they do actually cross over.
Until the very end. Then it all just sort of devolves into one kind of plot line.
There was one scene where they did momentarily cross paths, but they didn't even know it. You remember that scene somewhere in the middle where their cars crash?
That's like I think right at the like 3/4 mark.
Yeah, but
halfway maybe. But
yeah, but the thing is, I kind of lost my train of thought for a minute. So,
I think. Okay, here's a question: of both plot lines, which do you guys think was more compelling, like the diamond or the boxing?
I would probably have to say the boxing match because I think the villain of Bricktop, the villain was a lot more threatening and intimidating because basically with the diamond heist, all they were trying to do was get their hands on a valuable jewel. With Turkish and his debt to Bricktop, he actually did have his life on the line.
I would have to agree with that.
Yeah, like, I definitely agree with that, but I think basically what they were trying to go for was they sort of, I think it almost seems like they came up with the boxing one, and then they decided to work in another plot line, because so much of the comedic relief comes from the diamond plot line.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a serious-toned movie, and then when you're dealing with the boxing, like with Turkish and Tommy and Bricktop, as you said, and then when you deal with the diamond, it's like the idiot thieves who are just like shooting themselves in the leg when they try to shoot through a wall.
Messed up everything.
Like Boris taking like 50 shots to the chest and just laughing at the guy what was the bounty hunter's name? I can't remember.
Bullet Tooth Tony.
Bullet Tooth Tony. Tony's just shooting Boris in the chest, and Boris is just like, fuck you. It's just so much more comedic, and like another big scene is the one where Tony's in the bar, and the guys try to rob him of the diamond, and he's just sort of like, well, your gun says replica, and mine says .50 Desert Eagle, so I win. Yeah, and then he just blasts them. It's almost like looking at two different halves of a movie, but you can't really... But when you're watching it, you don't really feel that way because, like, some of the characters intermingle. Like, Bricktop is really the connecting character here besides that one scene.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they rob Bricktop to try to get the diamond, and then Bricktop is the one dealing with Turkish and Tommy.
Yeah.
And the fighting. So, it's like, except for him, you could really make two movies out of this.
Yeah, but that's actually, that's one of the things I love the most about the movie, that it can combine all this danger and action and conflict with some really funny moments. Like, there are times where you're seeing like people shooting at each other, but at the same time, you just can't help but laugh at it.
I always remember, two of the things that always stuck out as hilarious to me is there's one scene early on that's really random and short, but I don't even know if he ever had a name, but the guy who cooks for Turkish and Tommy.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
And he's just outside, and Turkish is like, "What about those sausages?" He's like, 2 minutes, Turkish. And then he asks him 5 minutes later, and he's like, 5 minutes, Turkish. He's like, even Turkish is just like, what the hell? You said 2 minutes 5 minutes ago. What's going on?
Yeah.
But it also always cracks me up whenever Turkish turns to Tommy and he's like, "What's the matter, Tommy? The German's coming." And he just always, like, where did that even come from? They didn't even explain this. It's just he always says the Germans as this joke.
Actually, a couple of times throughout the whole movie, I was wondering if maybe I had missed some sort of explanation of that joke really, really early on when I was kind of confused by it all, but I don't know. I don't think I did.
I don't think so. There's just out of nowhere, he just makes fun of Tommy for worrying about the Germans.
Yeah, maybe there was something that they forgot to put in there. Maybe there was, like,
a deleted scene or something.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, but whatever. And
but this does seem to really combine the whole sort of like Train Spotting in that it's consistently pretty serious, but also really humorous throughout the whole thing too. Like, I would say that the boxing story actually did have a fair amount of humor too, if only because of Brad Pitt's character. I think
Mickey.
Yeah, he really. I think another big. The only other real comedic part of that was the editing on the fights. Like, as soon as based around Mickey again. Like, as soon as Mickey knocks out the first guy, time just stops and the Turkish is just like, oh shit, and it just sort of darts around to everyone, and he's like, well, we are now like, what does he even say? It's either the first fight or the second.
Yeah. He
just panics and he's like, oh no.
He says like, oh great, now we're fucked. Or,
something like that.
Yeah. But that's another thing that you brought up. I absolutely adore the editing in this movie.
Oh, like, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And that's the thing about it. I really like the editing combined with the pacing. Like, there's no filler in it. They don't try and make time for really small, unimportant shit. They just go, this is what happens, on to the next scene. Attention. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they don't really stick to one frame for very long, and a lot of it is very masterful. Like, I've noticed that they used a lot of... do you guys know what hip-hop cuts are?
No.
No, I don't think so.
Alright, hip-hop cuts are a form of very fast editing, and they use this a lot in Snatch. Like, a very prevalent example was the scene where the three black guys were holding their guns at Bulletooth Tony. He says, and will you have replica on your gun? And then it zooms in onto the guns, and then it shows the words replica, just like, cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha, and then zooms right back out.
Like and a hard typewriter showing it, yeah.
Yeah, those are hip-hop cuts, and I noticed that they use that a lot in this movie.
And they pretty much used it throughout the entire thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's such a good comedic effect. Like, when he does the replica scene, it's just so funny how much emphasis they put on it. Like, he doesn't just say it, they show it blatantly to you that that's the case, and it's just funny that they take it so far and so over the top when they do it.
They really get the point across.
Yes.
Like, yes, this says replica. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah. And another scene I really like that uses a lot of great editing. The one we talked about before, where they very briefly collide when they're both in their cars. They cut to Turkish and Tommy in their car talking about milk or whatever. And then on the other side, they show all the jewel thieves in their cars talking about what they're going to do with Boris the Blade after they captured him. And it's constantly cutting back and forth between those. And you're thinking, what is this building up to? And then it shows, Turkish throwing that milk ball out of it, and it lands on their windshield, and it crashes. And
I loved that whole scene because it was all so intermingled with each other. I mean, you didn't really get how at first, but then they just did it perfectly.
I thought that scene was also one of the funniest because what the American guy's name was, I can't remember.
Frankie
the guy
Huh? No, Cousin Abby.
Yeah, Cousin Abby. He's trying to get and they crash after Tommy throws the milk on the windshield, and he just looks outside. He's like, "Hey Tony, is that Boris getting outside of the trunk, or is that Boris out there? And then Boris is just stumbling around with the cover over his head, and the black guys just ram into him and send him flying.
Yeah, yeah.
And then when Tommy and Turkish actually get to Boris's house, he stumbles up all bloody and everything, like bent on killing them, and he just ignores them and throws them out of the way. At
that point, I was really amazed that he was even still alive. I mean, damn.
Yeah.
And then he leaves there and gets shot in the chest like 8 times by Tony.
Yeah. Yeah. With that scene, they tend to the thing is, time seems to step backward and forward a few seconds between that scene. And
yeah, they tend to you hear the note, like he throws out the milk carton and you hear a car crash, and then they cut back to the car, and there's no real. It gets kind of hard to follow because they just sort of jump around without any real connection. But then once all the scenes are over from all the perspectives, you see what happened.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then it becomes really, really clear. There's no more confusion at all. So
yeah, it's controlled chaos.
I think this is definitely one of those movies that's even better watching it subsequent times.
Yeah.
Like, there are all these interconnecting things that, it's so much is thrown at you all at once that sometimes it's hard to even connect some things together.
Yeah.
Like, everything is just sort of jumping out. You're like, whoa, I can barely even keep up with this. But then when you watch it again, you can see all these things that came together. Like Four Fingers getting knocked out in the Jeep, or knocked out in the van, and then getting captured by them and killed and everything. And it just all works together, and you can really follow what the actual overriding, what everyone is doing at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because there's so many of those little time different cuts that you have to really step back and think about, what did I really just see, and how does everything mesh together to have a cohesive timeline. But it all does work and work well.
Yeah, this is definitely a movie that requires multiple viewings.
Yeah, even if I haven't actually had the chance to watch it a second time yet, since I did just finish it within the past hour, I definitely would be interested in watching it again at some point, just because I can tell there's definitely a lot. You'd be able to follow it a lot more easily the second time around, I imagine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Once you get all the pieces together, it becomes really clear.
Yeah. Now,
and plus it's very rewatchable, so it shouldn't be that hard.
Yeah.
Now, Graham, having seen it a bunch of times, Opal, having seen it once, what would you two say your favorite scenes are in the whole movie?
Opal?
The first one that pops out as my favorite scene is probably the one we were just talking about, where they're all driving and then it takes a few minutes to actually understand what's going on, and then it all comes together really clearly. I just really loved how that whole thing was done. Just the editing, the symmetry, all of it. It just was
I think
interesting.
Yeah. It's kind of hard for me to choose what my favorite scene is, but if someone was holding a gun to my head and forced me to choose one, I would have to say the scene where the 3 black guys are arguing about how to get rid of this body that Boris the Blade has left them with, and then Bricktop walks in.
Oh yeah,
and he explains in detail this very effective way of getting rid of bodies, which basically consists of chopping them up and feeding them to pigs.
Yeah, that was great too.
and then later on, he reveals that this is what he's going to do to them if they don't do what they're told. And that's another thing. I really love the villain of Bricktop. I mean, when you look at him, he's not all that threatening. He's really short. He has these huge, thick glasses, this really thick Cockney accent. But once you see what he's capable of, you realize that you do not want to be on his bad side.
But I think his voice, even with the accent, is very menacing at times.
Mm-hmm.
When he's yelling at Turkish to shut Tommy up, he just the slurring of his accent just makes him sound so menacing, like he's almost hissing out his lines.
Yeah.
And it just makes him have this menace about him that's really awesome.
Yeah.
He's one of those villains that's almost sort of badass in a way, but he's still really evil, so you can't like him too much.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you definitely don't want to be in his debt. Just ask Turkish.
No. Don't get inside his pocket because you'll never get out.
Yes, exactly.
And yet, at the same time, like I think he almost loses some of his menace. Because when he's at the boxing matches and these guys are yelling at him that like he told them that he was going to fix the fight and they lost money, it almost makes him seem like he's not really as powerful as he makes it sound, because it makes him seem like he's answering to these people. He's like, I'm sorry, I'll fix this, don't worry about it. So it's almost like he's not even the head honcho, and I think it sort of makes him seem a little less menacing because he's answering to people.
Yeah, I can kind of see that.
I mean,
yeah,
I
think that could be a case of him just wanting certain allies to still be on him. I mean, he still wanted those allies, and he didn't want them to just completely turn on him at that point because they made a bad deal. So he needed to keep certain alliances still intact.
Yeah.
No, I know. I'm just like it's just that like him working with other people, even if he's not working for them. Like, him working with other people just makes him just not... Like, when you're watching, you don't even think about it. And he is still very menacing. But afterward, like, doing this, like, you just think about it, and he's like, oh, yeah, well, he is still really menacing. But at the same time, he wants to work with other people. And he, like, there's another side of him that, like, bows to these other people. And it just kind of conflicts with who he really is.
Mm. So it's
but then you see him at the boxing match just... scare the hell out of this other guy who placed a bet on the fight, and he's just I don't even know if it's the same situation or what, but he just acts completely different and just threatens the guy, and he's like, well, you should be happy that I told you anything at all, even if it was wrong.
You can tell that guy definitely worked under him.
Yeah, definitely.
So it was kind of like seeing Darth Vader for the first time and seeing what a menace he was, and then seeing him turn around and then bow down to the Emperor. Am I right? Am I on the right track there?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So how about that Pikey?
They were definitely really weird and really well done.
Yeah.
Like, the whole group, like, their whole accent. Like, if you slow it down and listen, you can actually understand what they're saying, but they just talk... When you just watch it, they talk so fast and so accented. Brad Pitt really did an awesome job with that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, this is definitely one of his better roles.
Oh, wait. It's like,
I'm actually wondering, because I downloaded this to watch it for this. I downloaded the movie instead of renting it. And during the movie, it actually had subtitles for Brad Pitt's character.
Yeah, I was
just gonna... Is that just from my download, or, like, is that for the movie itself?
No,
the version I just watched didn't have them.
Yeah.
No, mine neither. I mean, there was a scene where Boris the Blade was speaking in Russian, and that had subtitles, but that was only for like 10 seconds.
No, I mean,
yeah, that's all I had was
said my download had subtitles for it all, and I just sort of assumed early on that it was supposed to be that way because his accent was so hard to understand.
Yeah, but that's kind of the point of the character. You're not supposed to be able to fully understand him.
Mm.
And I was just gonna say, when we were talking about train spotting, you were saying how like either you or Bill needed to watch it with subtitles because you couldn't understand their accents.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just gonna say that this might be something that you would require. This is something that you would need subtitles for.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that during the course of the movie.
Yeah,
but I figured. The reason I didn't turn on subtitles for my own personal watching was just because since the one character who was the most difficult to understand, Brad Pitt, had subtitles already for some weird reason. I'm not sure why now, considering I guess it's not naturally like that. But since he did have subtitles for my watching, I didn't need to turn on subtitles for everyone else, because most of the other characters are easy enough to understand. It's just mostly the one group.
Yeah, it's only the Pikeys and Russian, but I mean Russian's a straight up different language, so obviously you're going to need subtitles for that.
Yeah, and actually, if you actually look it up on like IMDb or Google or whatever, you can actually find some of the quotes and and see what he's talking about. Actually, you know what? There is this one video on YouTube where which is a compilation of the character. Mickey is his name, and towards the end, someone dubs it over with that audio from Bruce Almighty where Steve Carell's going up. Yeah, and actually, one of my favorite quotes from that movie came from Mickey when right after Tommy had picked up that trailer from him that was broken, and Tommy wanted to give it back, and he goes, "Why the fuck do I have a caravan that's got no fucking wheels?"
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite quotes from the movie.
Yeah, that
But
line
I
is
liked
awesome.
the whole group. I liked the whole group actually quite a bit, especially towards the end when you saw like the whole plan.
The whole
that they
badass
had.
pikey uprising.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was just awesome.
It's like, oh hey, the pikeys are pissed, so now Bricktop's men are all dead.
Yeah. Retribution's a bitch.
And they
So-
certainly did it well.
One thing I'm wondering, was the mother actually killed?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
because
She was asleep inside of her trailer, and Bricktop's men set it on fire while she was asleep.
see, that's what I thought. But then when Turkish started talking about how Mickey wasn't really, he seemed like too subdued about it. I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if that meant that he just meant that Mickey was already planning having revenge on Bricktop.
Well,
Or
he was.
if he had tricked Bricktop, or if he had like had his mother somewhere else that Bricktop couldn't get to her.
I think
So
if
thought
he had
that might
tricked
happen.
Bricktop, then we would have seen something about it at the end of the movie, even just a casual mention of it. I think he was just calmer and not in a total frenzy about it just because he had enacted his revenge at that point, or at least was going to very soon, so he was sort of
Yeah.
satisfied.
Yeah, and he said that, I mean, he was still in mourning, and he was still in grief, which caused him to get like so drunk off his ass later on. And when Turkish tries to console him, and he says he's sorry, he says he didn't need to apologize him for it because he had nothing to do with it. He didn't set the trailer on fire. But he is actually a really interesting character, and next to Bricktop, I think he's the most fun to watch.
Oh yeah, he's definitely one of the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like his accent, just the way he acts. Like he acts so confident all the time, but I mean he backs it up. I mean he drops these huge guys with one punch. So what does he have to worry about?
Yeah. Yeah, he's like that. He's like that little green man in Mike Tyson's Punch Out. He just like.
I have to say, I actually like, I prefer it when Brad Pitt acts in roles like this rather than his usual pretentious films and roles.
Yeah.
These are much better than the I'm so perfect roles he usually does.
Yeah. So you don't like Fight Club?
I have never seen Fight Club.
Oh. Well, this is the movie he did right after Fight Club.
Yeah, I can see why.
And he's
That
has
would
a body. And he
Yeah,
takes his
like he was
shit off.
already. Yeah, he already worked out for Fight Club. So why not just stay buff and do this movie now?
Yeah. And actually, he has actually wanted to work with Guy Ritchie because he was such a huge fan of Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, the movie he did beforehand. And actually, hey Tim, have you ever seen Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels?
No, I haven't.
Oh. And Opal, I'm assuming you haven't either?
It's one of the ones where I tried to watch it, but I sort of just got confused and I can't really remember any of it.
Yeah.
So I'm actually tempted, especially after this, to go back and try to watch it again, just because I did try to watch that years ago when I was a lot younger. So maybe I would understand it a bit more now. So
Yeah. I haven't watched it in one sitting. I've only caught like glimpses of it on TV. And but from what I've heard, there are a lot of similarities between this and between the two movies, between Lock, Stock, and Snatch.
makes sense because wasn't that and Snatch weren't these two his first two movies?
Yeah.
Guy Ritchie's, and they were only 2 years apart, I think.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, it makes sense that they would have the same sort of style and editing and such. So.
Yeah, once you got a few movies under your belt, then you can start learning how to do other things and expanding your repertoire.
I think of Guy Ritchie in the same way that I think of Wes Anderson, in that he found a winning formula and decided, why should I try to stray away from this when it works so well? Because a lot of his movies do follow a lot of the same tropes. Like, if you watch his other movies like Revolver, Rock and Rolla, Sherlock Holmes, they do have a lot of similarities and stuff like that.
Are you talking about the new Sherlock Holmes?
Yeah, he directed that.
Oh, wow, okay. Now that I think about it, yes, I could totally see the similarities between them. Because I do also love both new Sherlock Holmes movies.
Yeah,
I'm actually looking at Guy Ritchie's Wikipedia article right now, and I hadn't realized that he had directed all of those, the Sherlock Holmes movies, that is, until now. Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I can see why they got him, because
see those, but...
Because, I mean, like, both Sherlock Holmes movies make such good use of, like, there's a similar style where they have the slow-mos, where there's talking over very slow-motion action.
Yeah.
Like people discussing what's going to happen, and then there's also just like all these different things that are going on at the same time, and you have to keep track of the timeline in your head. And yeah, I can totally see how it's a similar formulaic style for him to go from one of these to the other.
I like to describe Guy Ritchie's movies as a self-solving Rubik's Cube. It seems all jumbled and contorted by the beginning, but as time goes by, it starts to fit itself together, and by the end, it's complete.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes me want to watch the Sherlock Holmes movies even more now.
You really do need to. They are very excellent. I
haven't actually gotten to see the new one yet.
Yeah, I've managed to see both, and they are both very excellent. But if you haven't seen either, obviously watch the first one first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm probably going to have to watch that one again, because I only saw it once in theaters, and it really did take me by surprise. I kind of walked into it thinking this is gonna suck, and then I was like, you know what, this is actually pretty not bad. This is actually a pretty badass movie. I want to see more of this guy.
I think he even sort of counteracts like the big reason that this was so confusing in the beginning, as I said before, was so many characters. There's really not that many characters in the Sherlock Holmes movie, especially the first one.
Yeah.
There's like Holmes, Watson, and Blackwood, and that's all you really start with.
Yeah,
and there's like the inspector, and the woman, and Moriarty's in it for like 3 seconds.
Yeah, there are only like 2 or 3 characters that really matter, as opposed to Snatch, where you have Turkish, you have Tommy, you have Bricktop, you have
almost too many to count.
You have Doug the Head, you have Cousin Avi, you have
Mickey,
you have Bullet 2 Tony, you have Boris the Blade, you have the 3 black guys, you have Bricktop.
The 3 black guys, they don't get names, they're just
Vinny, Soul, and Tyrone. And you have the dog.
I just remember, like, because there were so many, being confused early on. It's like, wait, when did we come to this guy? Oh, now we're following this guy? Oh, God, I can't follow this anymore. But then when you really sit down, I mean, I keep saying the same thing, but when you sit down and watch it again, you really do see, like, where they make these cuts and everything, and you can follow what everyone's doing a lot more easily.
Mm-hmm. I noticed pretty early on that this is another movie that has a really good cast.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, we have Brad Pitt, we have Jason Statham, we have Benicio del Toro, we have Dennis Farina.
Yeah.
I think the guy who played Cousin Avi.
Yeah, Dennis Farina.
Oh, okay. I didn't know his name, but he was really good. Like, he was really good at being the angry. Like, when everyone's in London, he's the angry, must do everything quickly American guy that sticks out so much because he's in England and with all these Englishmen.
Yeah. Did you know that he was in Law and Order?
I haven't seen I don't watch Law and Order.
Yeah.
I've never seen it.
He was on there for 2 years. I don't really watch it myself. I remember my mom used to watch it a lot, but
Now that you mention it, I think I remember seeing him. I never really watched it either, but I remember seeing like previews and such.
Yeah, but he got that role after Snatch. It says here he was on there for from 2004 to 2006. So yeah, it is kind of ironic seeing him going from playing a jewel thief to a detective.
Yeah. But I think the acting was consistently good from everyone. Even Jason Statham, who usually is he's kind of terrible. But
he's the British Bruce Willis.
Yeah. I mean, like the Crank movies, for example. Those are terrible. But Jason Statham was actually good in this role. So.
I think if you tried to get him to do this role now, you couldn't really, I mean, much less, you couldn't even make this movie now, pretty much. But, like, he's so much more the pure action guy now. Like, he was so much more unknown in 2000. Like, he had done some stuff, but...
This was the movie that actually launched his career.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Like, and then, I don't know how after this they turned him into this pure action guy. There's only the one scene when he's in the arcade and he smashes two guys with a baseball bat. Yeah. And then he doesn't have any other action in the whole movie. And then they just, like, he goes from this to being this huge action star.
Yeah. Because wasn't this before either the Crank series or the Transporter series?
This was in 2000.
Yeah, so I think it was before those two franchises.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
But I also noticed, I don't know his name, but Tim, I don't think you've seen Trainspotting, have you?
No, I haven't.
But you know Spud in Trainspotting, Graham. He was in this for only one scene, but he was still in it.
It was one hell of a scene. All right, Tim. The scene where Ewan Bregner, the guy who played Spud in Trainspotting. Remember that scene where Bullet Tooth Tony is driving down the street and he's trying to get...
Oh, yeah, the guy he drags in the window. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, that was him.
Oh, okay.
He was one of the main characters in Trainspotting.
Mm-hmm.
Quite a role difference.
Yeah.
A main character or the random tortured guy.
Yeah. Which is funny because in Trainspotting he's one of the main characters where they really emphasize you not being able to understand him that much, and it's consistently that's an issue in this movie too. So
slow down, Tony.
He has his throat caught in a car window. You're not supposed to understand him.
Yeah, that's true.
So, final verdict?
Tim, I'll let you go first.
I'd really say the movie is awesome. Like, it's so different from anything else, but it works so well that it's really something that you can't really miss. It's just excellent overall.
What would you give it out of 10? Like, on a scale of 10?
Probably something between an 8 and a 9.
No,
I mean, it's not perfect. Like, the first time you watch it, it's kind of confusing. But it's something that really gets better the more you watch it. You see all these other things, and it's just, you can really appreciate it so much when you watch it more.
Mm-hmm.
And the humor the humor is just so not like much else. It's not like blatant humor all the time. It's just like, and like they don't go out of their way to make it crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they do, the characters act so serious
silly
about it. Like the whole Replica versus Desert Eagle thing, like they act so straight-faced in that, but it's hysterical.
Yeah.
And then all like the banter between the thieves and everything, it just works so well as a comedy. It's a good action movie. It's like almost even practically a drama or a crime drama between all these different criminals. Mm-hmm. And like all these people competing for this diamond and for the boxing and everything. It just works very well. I'd definitely say an 8, something between an 8 and a 9.
Yeah, it's a type of movie where, with the plot and everything that happens, it could easily just be a simple drama, but they put in enough comedy that it really contrasts nicely.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. But on a scale of 1 to 10, I would probably give it a 7.5 to an 8. I once again, going into it, I thought I would be very, very confused by it, like every other Guy Ritchie movie I've ever seen, ever. Yeah. But I actually really wasn't after the first 20 minutes or so, maybe even 15. And then once, like you said, once it gets going, it really does, and there's really barely any filler at all. It constantly keeps your attention. It's the type of movie I'm already looking forward to eventually watching again. So
Yeah.
I
give it a 10.
Which is perfect.
Yeah. Well, I admit this is not. I admit this movie isn't. My sister's heard me in the background. She's laughing. I admit this isn't a perfect movie, but I admit that it does have its flaws. But even those aren't that distracting. And like I said earlier, I do really hold this movie really close to me, and I really and I can watch it over and over again. I love everything about it. It's definitely in my top 5.
Yeah, with how many movies you've seen, like you said in the beginning, that definitely means a lot.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the most entertaining movies I've ever seen.
It's like a good wine. It gets better with time.
Exactly.
It's not like a lot of old movies that get worse. It just keeps getting better. The longer you watch it, and the more times you're watching it, it stays out.
Yeah, it does definitely require multiple viewings, but they are definitely viewings that you will look forward to.
And if you can get through the first one and enjoy it, it'll only get even more enjoyable. But you have to get through that first one.
Yeah, if you can't get through it the first time, don't even bother.
Yeah.
All right, that was our podcast of Snatch. I'd like to thank Timpedia for joining us.
Yep, no problem.
All right, and join us next time when we discuss Donnie Darko. Donnie Darko. Donnie Darko. Donnie Darko.